When Phil Spencer said he wanted Microsoft to acquire Nintendo, what he meant was he needs a plumber to take care of these leaks. Am I right? Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week we talk about the news, from Unity's bizarre price change for developers to the leaks of Microsoft's plans for the future Xbox. Oh, and a Nintendo Direct? Woo! I'm Maddy Myers.
I'm Jason Schreier.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton, and hello.
Hello, everybody. Hi. It's us again.
Nice to see you both.
Back for another week of video games.
And boy, I just have to say, thank God our emails didn't leak the way Microsoft did.
Well, thank God we didn't
leak our own
accidentally upload them anywhere.
Thank God we didn't upload our secret planning document.
Every day I wake up and I make sure not to press the big red button that says leak all Triple Click archives and messages.
Maddy, why would you even code a button like that?
Just for fun, mostly.
Seems really risky.
Yeah, I had some questions when you were doing that.
Just because I really want people to know how many times in the past Kirk and I have tried to convince Jason to watch various movies, and he just ignores the messages over and over again.
We have to read it into the public record. It's
people need to know about that. But speaking of which, why would I be talking about forcing Jason to watch various movies? Well, I have something important to get to right off the top, which is that we, as a podcast that's part of the Maximum Fun Network, we participate in the tradition of yore of releasing bonus episodes to anyone who deigns
passed
to go
along from our ancestors.
That's right. To anyone who deigns to go to MaximumFun.org/join and become a member. If you partake in that grand tradition and you become one of us, then you get to listen to monthly bonus episodes from us and also bonus episodes from other podcasts on the network. And the one that we're going to release this month is about two of my favorite movies that are also both about the topic of AI. And they are the movie Her and the movie Ex Machina, which are both, well, Her is like a romantic drama, and then Ex Machina is like a romantic drama that is actually a horror movie, is maybe how I would describe it.
They're kind of opposite movies in a lot of ways, which I think will be two good poles for our conversation to orbit around.
And yet I would say that they ultimately have very similar ideas about AI in the end. Perhaps.
Well, we're going to get into
or
that.
Do
that should
they?
Be an interesting conversation.
Or do they? But yeah, it'll be a great conversation. I love those movies, and Jason's never seen them before. Much like, say, Die Hard, which we also watched for one of our bonus episodes, and the Mario live action movie, which we watched just a little taste.
That I had seen.
That you
Kirk
had
hadn't
seen,
seen
of
it.
course. Yes, I didn't mean to lump it in that way. I was just listing other movies at that point, but it's true.
Just listing some movies.
Yeah, just listing movies. Movies.
Let's remember some guys.
Let's remember some movies we've watched for Triple Clip bonus episodes. But yeah, MaximumFun.org/join. You can listen to those episodes. We do talk about video games on there too.
We do.
More often than not. And that's what we're going to talk about today, at least from the news perspective. Jason, I'll kick it over to you to lead the ep.
Yeah, well, so there has been a lot of news over the past week, so we're going to do a news roundup today, a good old-fashioned news roundup.
Yeehaw!
Can you insert a cowboy sound effect?
Sure, I'll come up with something.
Yeah, we're walking in through the swinging double doors, and there's a
So wait, you
want
like a record scratch? The piano player stops, everybody turns and looks at us. I thought we wanted like a whip crack.
No, I was thinking the whip crack, like
roundup.
News roundup. Yeehaw! Okay. We're rounding up some news.
Way more fun than what I was picturing.
But Maddy, I do like the saloon idea too. We'll save that for another.
As we're doing Wild West cliches, I'll do them both, and we'll save the second one for something else.
All right.
So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with the big controversy that started last week, which involves the video game technology company Unity. Unity was caught in a firestorm last week. So let me give the kind of short version of the headlines, and then we can get into it from there. So short version is that Unity put out a new policy that is essentially a price hike that says, hey, if you have a game that is made with the Unity engine starting in January, if you hit a certain number of installs, if users of your game install it a certain number of times past a certain threshold, we will charge you per install. It was 20 cents per install for the lowest level. It kind of changes. There's a lot of complicated aspects of the policy, but that was the gist of it.
Charge the developer of the game. We should say.
You user of a Unity engine. And so, people freaked the hell out for a number of reasons. First and foremost, because this was just kind of like surprise dropped on everybody, and it would affect all Unity games no matter what. And it was just kind of, it felt like a punch in the face. It felt like a violation of their terms of service. There were a bunch of things left unclear that Unity then had to clarify in subsequent days. It was a communications disaster, like potential Harvard Business School study in like how to not communicate a new policy. And where we're at now is yesterday, so Monday, I reported that Unity had an all-hands meeting where they were talking about potential changes, which they haven't yet officially announced, but one of them was like a cap on the number of on the amount of money that you have to pay due to the new policy. Another one was that like the policy wouldn't apply retroactively, so like installs would only start counting in January. But it's all just become one big mess. We've seen a lot of people get mad about it. A lot of people switch over to different engines or threaten to leave the Unity engine, which is a complicated thing, especially if you have a game that's like years in development on Unity at this point. And it's just been one big disaster. And the long and short of it is this means that Hollow Knight Silksong will once again be delayed another 40 years. Maddy, why don't you kick us off? What did you see this controversy? What was your take on this whole series of events?
I find this to be a shocking policy to implement from Unity's perspective, and I completely understand why game developers would be upset by it. Even though, from a financial perspective, I understand the logic, it's the kind of decision that were I, for some reason, put in charge of Unity, I wouldn't make. Obviously, it's expensive from an energy standpoint, to install video games. Like, that is the logic here. The cold, calculating logic is, yes, the more people install a video game, the more energy is used in that transaction. And that's how Unity is thinking of it. But the result is that you're making game developers feel like the more successful their game is, the more they'll be punished for that, which is a pretty dicey proposition for kind of indie devs and also kind of AA developers who are dealing with like a pretty risky financial situation in terms of how much they can actually put into their game and in continuing to develop it. We've talked about that quite a bit on the show in the past, like how close to the line some of those AA and single A developers are in terms of financing. So I just, like, for example, Cult of the Lamb, which is an indie game that we talked about on this show, they did a joke post about how they were going to delete their game. And people immediately believed it because the situation was so fraught. Like, the reactions were so high that people were like, oh my God, am I not going to be able to play Cult of the Lamb anymore? And they had to like put out like a long TikTok where they were like, we were kidding. We aren't actually deleting the game.
That's
However,
a good way to juice sales.
I mean, I don't know if that works. That'd be interesting to ask them, but they did have to be like, listen, we wrote a joke post on the internet. We aren't deleting our game. However, like, the Unity decision is going to really impact developers like us and developers of our size. And also switching to a different engine is extraordinarily expensive. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen next. This is like the most I've had to talk about Unity at work in a while, though. I feel like we don't often think about reporting on game engines, and like a lot of them don't have name recognition in a headline, but Unity sure does now. So there's that, I guess.
Yeah, worth noting, Unity went public in 2020, and since then has been just stepping on one rake after another under CEO John Riccitiello, who was formerly the CEO of EA, where he oversaw the company under its whole Worst Company in America award-winning years, and really oversaw the era of like microtransactions. And I think he once said in a investor call or something something like that. Some video has him on tape saying that they should charge players, or they could charge players per number of bullet they use in a shooting game.
Another great idea.
Yeah, just brilliant all around. Kirk, you are not as in touch as with the gaming news world as Maddy and I are these days, but have you seen the Unity controversy? What have you kind of made of it?
Yeah, I didn't hear about it when it happened, and then was talking to some friends who mentioned the discourse, and I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And it's always a wonderful sort of blessed feeling for me when someone mentions the discourse, and I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So then I got the short version of it and was a little bit in disbelief that this was really happening. I think maybe it would be helpful for our listeners for me to ask the two of you for some clarification on how this works. Because I think I understand it, but also the specifics of it are worth really understanding. So my understanding is that you pay a license. You used to pay for a license to use the Unity engine to make your game. And then you release the game and you sell it. Is that correct?
Well, okay, so it's a little convoluted because Unity, like everything these days, has different tiers of membership. There's like personal, pro, whatever. And so it really depends on like what scale of game that you're making, where and what sort of category.
Let's say pro, like your Cult of the Lamb or something. How does that work exactly? Like how do you pay Unity, or when do you pay Unity? Under the old model.
So yeah, I mean, essentially, if you are making a game under Unity, you are paying a yearly or a monthly fee to Unity. And I believe that Unreal, which is Unity's biggest competitor, is a similar thing. But Unreal also has a form of revenue share, and this is kind of Unity's way of doing its own form of revenue share, except in a way more convoluted, way more potentially exploitable way. And I think that one of the reasons that the cap on potential money that Unity can take from this thing is going to be the solution that mollifies people, or to the best that Unity can at this point, is because it doesn't, in theory, it makes sense to do some sort of revenue share agreement, because that's what the precedent that Unreal has set is. It's just that the way that Unity announced this and rolled it out was just so ham-fisted. It was just people immediately had the question, what happens if you're part of Xbox Game Pass and people download it millions of times? You're charged for those downloads. The idea of installing millions of times, the idea of installs translating to revenue doesn't make sense, because it doesn't, especially in the free-to-play world, where a lot of people can just download games and install them and never pay a dime. So immediately it just didn't really fit, and a lot of people were like, why didn't you just announce a revenue share instead of this whole cockamamie scheme? But does that answer your question, Kirk?
Well, yes, more than more even than I needed, because the second part of the question that I think is just something that people should keep in mind, or the important distinction, is the one you're talking about, which is per install. So they're changing it to say the number of times the game is installed, you then pay us some amount per install, rather than revenue sharing like Unreal does, where you just pay us some percentage of your income. And that does strike me as just, I don't really understand why they're doing it that way, because that would freak me out. I'm thinking the closest thing I can think of from the world of music, where I'm a little more familiar with publishing, would be right now you pay a licensing fee to use Pro Tools if you want to record with it. You don't have to pay a licensing fee ongoing if you recorded your album with Pro Tools for it to remain up for sale, so that's a little different already. But this would be like them saying, okay, now instead of paying, I don't know, some percentage of your revenue for us allowing you to use these tools, you have to pay per play. And if there's just bots auto playing or something, or you get onto some Spotify playlist, you would immediately be scared, because you'd be like, oh God, I'm about to get millions of plays, and that means I'm going to be on the hook for a lot more money.
Yeah, that's not exactly the comparison, because it's not per play of the game. It's per, most games, you just install it once. That's not a direct. The bigger issue, I think, is that there was so many questions, so many holes in this. What happens if I am part of a Reddit brigade and I want to go after you, and so I have everybody uninstall the game and then reinstall it deliberately to harass you.
Well, and right, what I'm getting at is not that the two things are directly comparable, but that the approach of saying you're responsible for something other than just a percentage of your revenue, which is how basically how revenue sharing has worked since time immemorial. It's very easy because you can just look at the amount of money you made and say, okay, well, we're on the hook for this percentage for licensing this software. Like, that's really straightforward. The minute it's something that's like plays or installs in the case of these games, it's something that's out of your control in a way that just seems to me, as a developer or as a musician or as whatever, as a person creating things, like, that is a really scary and really stressful proposition, and seems to me to be the fundamental problem of this whole thing. Just from the outside, when I first heard about it, I was like, that seems like the problem. If they want to make more money off of their engine, cool. They can come up with some way to do it that isn't like, doesn't have this fundamental unknown factor that just seems like it introduces a lot of chaos.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think you're spot on.
Again, punishes success. Like, there's even a different way to message it that is fundamentally the same thing, that makes it clear to people that when you are making enough money from your game, at that point we're going to take a bigger cut. And like, maybe the way that they would calculate that would be functionally very similar, but by describing it in the way that they did, they've made it seem terrifying for anyone to install your Unity game, which is like the opposite of what you want.
Right. Well, I mean, installs don't equal revenue. Like, they're not the same thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
specifically punishing for success in the free-to-play mobile space, which is where it's going to hit the hardest. I mean, Cult of the Lamb, like a game like that, you're not really, maybe you install it on multiple machines, but that's so rare. Like, realistically, this policy isn't going to hurt them that much. But I think the bigger problem here, and then we'll get onto the news story, but at least in my opinion, and you guys can offer your takes, but the bigger problem is that they've just torched their brand, because they essentially said, like, we care about you so little, we're just going to throw this policy out. It's going to be half-assed. It's going to change everything you know. It's going to affect already existing users that are like trusting us to go like with the Unity engine here. And it just like immediately they lost all trust with so many people that I'm not sure they can ever get it back. And then like in practically, I don't actually think that this policy is going to financially hurt that many people, if it hurts anybody, really. It's more that they just completely like bungled the rollout and the messaging and the entire execution of this so badly that it just feels like from now on Unity will just be associated with chaos and John Riccatello like trying to steal people's wallets.
Yeah, I will say that my reaction when I heard this was, that is never going to happen. That was the first thing I said.
I was like, when are they going to undo this?
Well, it is going to happen, just with extreme like caveats and like
the thing people are describing though is not going to, just seems very unlikely to me that this like apocalypse is going to happen to every indie game.
Or if it did, then every single developer would stop using Unity, which is like pretty much what the reaction was to the news, which would cause it to cease to exist. Like, those are kind of the two outcomes. Is like either Unity goes out of business for making the worst decision ever, or they come up with some other more logical way to approach this and implement some changes that actually make sense to people.
Which will probably happen. Speaking of big corporations stepping on rakes, let's talk about what happened to Microsoft this week. So early on Tuesday morning, late Monday night, people discovered that Microsoft had accidentally uploaded a treasure trove of documents to the FTC court record website, and that they were all public and could be downloaded by anybody. And suddenly on Tuesday, it became Xbox Leak Day, and so many different emails and PowerPoint presentations and slides and all sorts of delicious corporate shenanigans leaked on the internet. It was fascinating. I mean, some of the highlights were hardware plans for the next few years, which included an all-digital version of the Xbox Series X coming next year, and like some next-gen console in 2028 that is like hybrid with cloud stuff, and who knows, we're talking years away now, so unlikely that it'll actually be what's on paper right now, but still.
Well, also a more advanced Xbox controller with updated haptics.
Trying to compete with the
DualSense.
Hell yeah.
Well, the haptics are pretty cool. That's why the new PS5 controller is cool. And I thought the most interesting part, other than like some Phil Spencer emails and seeing how he talks to his team in private and exchanges with other executives, I thought that was interesting. But the other interesting part was the Bethesda lineup, like the entire lineup for ZeniMax games over the next few years, which was a little out of date. I think this was from like 2020, and so a lot of the years were totally wrong. I think they had Starfield coming out in 2021 or something like that. fiscal year 2021. But still, it had some gems on there. Dishonored 3, an Oblivion remaster, a Fallout 3 remaster. It's like they listened to our episode from a few weeks ago and were like, hey, we should remaster those games.
I guess they didn't hear the part where we said Oblivion was boring and Morrowind was better.
No, they were probably reading the Triple Click Discord, in which there are many Oblivion likers. Regardless, clearly they're very up to date on Triple Click, just everything.
Yeah,
well, we can fairly assume that.
And also, it was they time traveled back to 2020 to create this presentation.
So split screen. They've been listening to split screen. You know, Pete Hines is out there listening to split screen.
He definitely is. And then like a bunch of code names. Some of these, I believe, are canceled games. Some of them are not going to happen. Some of them are going to happen. Like there's a game in there called Project Kestrel that I believe is the ZeniMax Online Studios, the makers of Elder Scrolls Online. Kestrel is their new game. I believe that it might actually be called Kestrel. I guess we'll see about that, but the codename is definitely Kestrel. And yeah, a bunch of other stuff. I mean, Project Hibiki is on there. I believe that is Hi-Fi Rush, which already came out. So what did you guys make of all these leaks? Did you read through any interesting Phil Spencer emails? Did you see anything that
he wanted to buy
guys?
Nintendo. Wasn't that an old Jason Schreier prediction of years gone by that Xbox would buy Nintendo or attempt to have Nintendo in its corner? I feel like
maybe
I remember
sounds like one of the when we did the bonus wild predictions.
Crazy wild predictions.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like your super outlandish one.
Mm-hmm. I was interested to see that one, but yeah, mostly I mean, what do you guys think about the all digital Xbox? Like, talk about the Xbox thing that will never die. It really has me going back in time 10 years and thinking about all those arguments that we all got to have about digital only consoles. Like, it's coming, apparently.
Every conversation I've had with like people who know things at game companies are like, you would not believe how few people are buying physical these days. It's like the industry has already changed it. Yeah, okay, you guys would believe it, but they're like, like the numbers are like, it's like the digital transformation has come much quicker than a lot of people anticipated. So it doesn't shock me that they would be going all digital. Like I think maybe it's probably less than 10% or less than 20% of people are buying physical these days.
I know. I just also think that that's happening at the same time as everyone realizing that we've all made a horrible mistake because our digital libraries are deteriorating and often not as comprehensive as they might have been if we'd been collecting Blu-ray discs all this time. And I'm really sensing that pain, like seeing games either get delisted or like, I mean, obviously we're not talking about Netflix here. We don't need to get into that, but goodness knows a lot of things that used to be available to me easily 10 years ago in the golden age of streaming where everything was cheap and easily available. It's not so these days. And I'm feeling that anxiety already of like, oh, if everything goes digital, then what's going to happen to video game preservation and the actual ability to play the games that come out in that digital only era, but like 20 years after that, assuming we aren't, busy with the water wars and everything at that point.
Well, we'll need a distraction. We'll need to play
exactly.
old video games.
And if only we had them on disc, because at that point, all we'll have left is like our deteriorating PS5s.
Yeah, well, the internet infrastructure will be totally dismantled.
Well, exactly,
so we'll need discs.
Yeah. Exactly what I'm saying. We need the disc for the post-apocalyptic wasteland that we're going to be entering into. Mm-hmm. So
I do wonder if video game collecting is going to become kind of like vinyl collecting.
I think it is. I feel like I can already sense that because a couple days before this leak happened, I guess it's not a couple days. It was only on Monday. This has been such a long week already. On Monday, one of my coworkers was talking about how he doesn't have a Blu-ray player because he had bought the PS5 that doesn't have a disc drive. Because he was like, at the time, I just figured, well, get whatever PS5 you can get. And now he doesn't have a Blu-ray player. And he's like, I don't know how to watch Blu-rays. And I was thinking of him when I was reading about the digital only Xbox. And I'm like, well, what about people who want to watch movies and they actually look really good? Or people who want to play games that aren't off of subscription services and the games actually look as good as they can look? I mean, I'm not even just thinking of the preservation angle, but also just the fact that sometimes you want something to actually look good. And that's where the vinyl record of it all comes in, Kirk, where I'm like, yeah, I think that collector sensibility does matter when it comes to things actually operating as intended and installing and running off of the disk, you know?
So my question is, are the future, like the physical game collections of future people like Jason, of your kids, when they are, when it's the hip thing to have a physical collection, the way that we have vinyl collections now, is it going to be the same as vinyl collections these days where everyone has the same 16 Joni Mitchell records and the same
what
kind
are
of Earth,
those
Wind and Fire?
records?
Because everything is from the 60s and the
list.
70s when records were mass produced. So basically everyone will have the 2008 Prince of Persia for the Xbox 360 on a physical copy.
Yes.
But no one is going to have, I don't know, Bloodborne or Cyberpunk. There will be no physical copies of Cyberpunk.
It's interesting. I will say that one thing, to Xbox's credit, they put all their games on PC, and if you want to preserve things, PC is the way to go, because ultimately, other than online only games or games with heavy DRM, you can ultimately play anything forever on PC. You could get emulated ROMs for pretty much anything from 30 years ago. And while I'm not pro pirating new games, I am very much pro preserving games that can't be bought anywhere else. And so I think that, to Xbox's credit, unlike PlayStation and Nintendo, which release games only on their consoles, I think releasing everything on PC helps in the great preservation wars. But yes, when the internet goes offline and we're all lost forever, then that'll change.
We're just
things,
carrying
but
hard drives around.
Yeah.
You just got to make it to
ROMs,
Chris Grant's
just
bunker,
USB
where he's
drives full
got
of
a
ROMs.
huge trove of every copy of PlayStation All-Stars.
Right, so after the Water Wars, it'll be just got to make it all the way to the Eastern Seaboard, and you'll find the guy who has the hard drive, so you can finally play Battletoads again.
You can play Ratchet
I have a
and
couple
Clank.
other thoughts on this Xbox leak. One is just that I'm excited that Dishonored 3 is going to happen. I hope
Yes.
that Arcane is allowed to get back to making those kinds of games, because
That'd be
that's what
cool.
they're really good at, and I'll play the hell out of that when it comes out.
Yeah, I wonder how real that is. I guess we'll see, but I wonder.
Yeah, it was just exciting to hear the words Dishonored 3.
I know. The one I do know, Oblivion Remaster is 100% real. That's a little sooner than later. Dishonored 3, I don't know.
You
That
guys
might
heard it
be
here. Jason
up in the
Schreier
air.
says it's 100% real. That's a really high-stakes sentence, Jason. Are you sure you want to stand by that?
Well, that 100% real doesn't mean it won't be canceled. It just means it's
Okay,
it's
fair
really
enough.
happening.
All right.
Last thing is just there have been some headlines about internal descriptions of Baldur's Gate 3 by
Yes.
Oh,
Microsoft
yeah.
and how they
Yeah,
underestimated
yeah.
that game. I think that this was an interesting news story that I've been a little bit aware of over the last couple of weeks, is just these small indicators that Microsoft misunderstood how big Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be. So there's this second story that's unrelated to this leak, but that's that Baldur's Gate 3 did not come out on Xbox when it came out on PlayStation, not for any exclusivity deal, but because Larian could not get the split screen working on the Xbox Series S, which is the less powerful Xbox. And as a result, because Microsoft has a requirement that there be parity between the Series S and the Series X, Larian wasn't going to be able to release the game because the Series S is less powerful. It couldn't do split screen co-op. So what are you going to do? So the game came out on PS5, this massive game, one of the best games of the year, one of the greatest RPGs I've ever played. Just finished it last night, by the way. Amazing ending. Really great game. And it's not on Xbox. And that really, it wound up being almost compounded by the fact that Starfield is an Xbox exclusive, and also Starfield got, let's say, much more mixed reviews than Baldur's Gate 3, and so it's turned into a weird proxy, not a proxy console war, but a false console war,
Yeah.
where because so many times critics who just played Baldur's Gate 3 will say something about Starfield. Oh man, the writing in this is nowhere near as good. And then people get mad who are feeling that kind of console loyalty about a game that's not on their console, even though the reason it's not on their console is because Microsoft was being inflexible. And then Microsoft changed their policy for Larian
That's right.
to allow the game to come to Xbox so they can get this massive hit out. Anyways, all of that is to say there is some language in here that could be interpreted as Microsoft basically predicting that Baldur's Gate 3 is some niche bullshit that no one cares about.
Well, so specifically, so the context here is that there is a chart
Stadia
essentially
thing.
that is how much Microsoft would expect to pay a publisher, or how much a publisher would be expected to ask for Game Pass day and date, and it's Star Wars Jedi Survivor $300 million, something crazy like that. Assassin's Creed Mirage $100 million. Baldur's Gate 3 $5 million. And then the lowest possible expectations. And then the description of it is like second run Stadia PC game.
I can't.
Second run Stadia PC RPG.
I read that and there were not enough fire emojis to add to it. Truly, I can't believe. I mean, pour one out for the Stadia employees who had to read that news today. Like, they're out there being like,
well,
you know
what's funny is that, so when we were at Kotaku, things have changed, but when we were at Kotaku, back when traffic stats were public, you could get a lot of info out of like how many people were looking at articles about specific games. You could get an indication of how well those games would do. And I remember lots of Baldur's Gate 3 stuff doing extraordinarily well. And
that was the closest thing we had to Nielsen ratings was the big board.
Yeah,
it really did tell you,
oh,
this game's got heat. People
care about this game.
It was a good way of knowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not public, but even at Polygon internally, we knew. We planned for that, and we were like, Baldur's Gate 3, we're going to have to gird our loins. Yeah, Zelda came out this year, but whatever. Right. Rest up, kiddos. We all got to get in on Baldur's Gate. So, like, I don't know what he was doing.
You also have to gird your loins because it's a really horny game.
I know. And you got to decide what you're going to gird your loins
especially
with.
pre-patch. You heard they patched the horniness out, right? They dehornified all of your party members.
One more quick thing before we move on. Phil Spencer put out a statement on Twitter. On X, the website formerly known as Twitter.
What are you saying? On what?
That's for you, Kirk. We've seen the conversation around old emails and documents. It is hard to see our team's work shared in this way because so much has changed and there's so much to be excited right now and in the future. We will share the real plans when we are ready.
The real plans.
We've seen the conversation around old emails and documents. What a sentence. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's keep moving on. There's some other headlines to get to. First, real quick, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth gets a trailer. Man, that looks so sick.
Oh, such a good trailer. Remember when Vincent was there? That was cool.
An official trailer for fan service. There were like 9 fan service moments in that trailer that made me yell.
Well, there were so many snapshots.
Remember when Tifa and Eris and Yuffie were on the train together? That was great. And then Cloud was on a Segway.
Well, there were so many little shots that are like, oh my God, that's Cosmo Canyon. Oh, that's Costa del Sol. Like just little moments. Oh, there's Chocobo racing. Oh my God, the boxing mini
Vincent Valentine in his crypt was the moment for me where I was like, wow, this is just going to have it all.
Just phenomenal stuff. One quick note, the developers say that the game will end at the Forgotten City, which is, I believe, the end of Disc 1 in the original PlayStation release. And so it remains to be seen how they handle the finale, but I'm very excited to see what they do. It's so funny, like, after playing Remake and the twist ending of that game and the revelations of that game, this really feel like I'm so excited for this. Like,
me too.
More than I ever thought I would be.
I'm even more amazed by the people who have only played Remake and don't know the plot of the original game. And to each and every one of those people, I just have to hold both their hands in mine and be like, at least look it up because you're just going to get more and more
You're just going to be confused. It's a sequel.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think you should because this is essentially a sequel to Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like it's not, despite the name, quite a remake.
Yep.
Like
this is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
That's right.
It's not even called Remake.
So you gotta know the original story and whatever happens.
I may or may not have immediately downloaded Final Fantasy VII Remake on my PC to replay it in preparation for Rebirth.
Understandable. It was a cool trailer.
There was also Nintendo Direct. Some cool stuff got announced. Princess Peach Showtime.
The game looks great. I just watched the trailer
really
for that.
cool.
I missed the Direct.
It looks so fun.
Yeah, this is a game. So this is a game for anyone who didn't see it, starring Princess Peach.
Yes.
Where Princess Peach is putting on a show at a theater. The whole thing, it takes place on stage.
That's right. In classic Mario format, it's on stage.
Yes. Like Mario 3.
Yep.
And Baddie shows up and takes over, and she has to save the show. So the whole thing is like costume changes for new abilities.
Yes.
And it's all staged with like set design and lighting and props, and everything is moving around and shifting. So it's got this kind of really incredibly cool look. I was amazed by that trailer. That game looks really, really fun.
Super cool.
I'm really excited to play it.
Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is getting a remake. That is pretty cool. That's a great game that I think you guys will enjoy when the remake comes out.
That just topped some poll I saw online of the best Mario story by a mile, like some reader poll, and that made me excited because I've definitely never played it and would love to.
There's some good stuff
Paper
in there.
Mario.
A lot of cool side characters. There's this hilarious kind of like series of I don't know if they're like intermissions with where you control Bowser or you control Peach. No, Bowser. You control Bowser trying to go after Peach, and then the funniest thing is that you run into Luigi at every city, and he just talks about his adventures, and they're just like increasingly like wild and more far-fetched. But you never see anything. Yeah, it's all off screen.
Right.
Amazing.
It's fantastic.
I love that.
And then there was a video game called Unicorn Overlord.
I watched the trailer for that. So this is from Vanillaware, and it's another sort of classic RPG.
It's a strategy game.
Good
yeah,
title,
well, it's
though.
a strategy.
It is funny that
RPG.
it's called Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah, what a name! What a
I would have
name.
thought that'd be like a Devolver, like a semi-ironic
Yeah, doesn't it sound like
Unicorn
that?
Overlord.
indie
Yeah.
game where you have an unicorn army that you have like a farm and you're breeding them
And
for
you're the
combat.
unicorn
and the
overlord.
But this is 100% serious. I
like robot unicorn attack, I suppose. Unicorns are a kind of ironic instrument in that, like lolcats, sort of 2008 era way.
Did you? So watching it live, they didn't see the title until the end. So the entire trailer is like 2 minutes of them talking about this like high fantasy stuff, dead serious, deadpan, and then at the end, Unicorn Overlord, and I just cracked up when I heard that. It was ridiculous.
Right, you expect it to be called like Fields of the Magisterium or something.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
but like Magisterium is in all caps, and then there's a colon, and it's like, remember the Titan beginning, and then there's like another colon, and then it's like prologue.
Maddy, you know your JRPGs. Yeah, prologue 5.6
For a lot of reasons.
One thing I'll say is that like Vanillaware's last game, 13 Sentinels, I wasn't super hot on that game, but the worst, but there were some good parts. The one part that wasn't good was the strategy like gameplay.
I had the same
so-
thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I was
So-
into the story, but not into the game part.
That
and
was
so
the
I'm
worst
like-
part of it, and so for them to make
Yeah.
a strategy game, but who
Yeah.
knows? I mean, it looked cool. It looked gorgeous. Also.
And it could be totally like different people designing it.
But what about the title 13 Sentinels? That's what I thought you were going to say wasn't good, because the full title's also really weird.
Aegis Rim, is that
I don't
right?
even
Aegis
know.
Rim, yeah.
Anyway, it's fine. I don't know. Unicorn Overlord.
13 Sentinels on its own is a fine name. But
this is all right.
Unicorn
It's like
Overlord
13 Assassins.
is not. I mean, there's so many things wrong with it. First of
I
all, it's
think it
hard to
rules.
say. It's like so many. A name shouldn't have so many syllables. Unicorn Overlord.
I think it
I
rules.
think that it's memorable, though. I'm going to say that it is a memorable name. Unicorn Overlord. I'll remember that name.
That's fair.
Which it's got that going for it.
That's
like
fair.
some games are just not memorable, and
Unicorn
that's their
Overlord.
problem.
I think it's fun to say Unicorn Overlord.
There's something about like the O at the end of unicorn leading into the
It's a little
O
bit
in
of a rural
Overlord.
juror.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the rural juror. Nice. Couple more headlines. These two are kind of connected. Layoffs everywhere, despite this being such a humongous year for games and
Yeah.
game sales. And Embracer falling apart just a couple of years after it bought up the entire AA games industry. It is laying people off, shutting down studios, shut down Volition, the makers of Saints Row. It's trying to sell or spin off Gearbox, the makers of Borderlands. Just a disaster, like trash fire of a company. And layoffs, I mean, Immortals of Avium, that game, speaking of titles, that game came out like 3 weeks ago under EA, and I guess it sold so poorly they laid off half the studio like within less than a month later, which is just pathetic. Imagine like working your ass off to ship this game and then you get laid off before you can even like see how it does in the long term, like
or have a chance to
perform that badly.
potentially update it or like make any change to it in response to what happened or anything. Yeah.
God, what a disaster. But yeah, it's just a lot of bad industry news alongside all the exciting stuff. Unfortunately, it's just one of those years, and I know this is kind of a worldwide problem, or at least countrywide problem with the economic. I don't know. Is it a downturn? Who knows these days? But a lot
Uncertainty
of
at the very
problems, a lot of turbulence, and games industry is no exception. It's a bummer. What have you guys been making of all this?
Yeah, I mean, it is confusing in light of just how many incredible video games have been coming out this year. Like, just from the coverage side, I feel like it's been hard for us to keep up in a good way. Like, it's nice when there's a ton of really great stuff to cover, and that's always exciting at work. And then that to have that be also juxtaposed with like, oh, there's an economic downturn supposedly, and then also to see all these layoffs, it's confusing, because I'm like, really? Because I feel like everyone I know is buying video games and playing video games and talking about how great they are. So I don't understand. It always just feels like a mismatch to me, but I'm not an economist and I don't know what money even is. So that might be part of
what
it.
is economy? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know what
Well,
it
and I
is.
get that feeling too. That feeling that there's a disconnect between the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's that disconnect between the logic of the real world and even the logic of the market that we engage with as consumers, where it's
Yeah.
like you want to buy good things and you buy them, and the market of investment and Wall Street and the stock market,
and
which is just a
growth.
totally different
Exponential growth.
logic that works on a different, just a whole, it's this weird alien thing that just doesn't really make sense. So then you see stuff that doesn't feel like it should be happening. And we're seeing more and more and more of it because, the acquisitions are getting bigger and bigger. The people holding, people buying companies are motivated by increasingly abstract. It's perplexing to me as a civilian.
Yeah, motivated by watching the line on the graph go up and to the right, just the eternal chase for growth.
Right, and just the things that require that to happen are increasingly arcane, it seems to me. It's not as simple anymore as just, I don't know, make a cool thing and sell
make a
it
cool
to
thing and
people.
sell it.
It's
Yeah.
so far beyond that it can be really hard to get your head around.
Yeah, for
It's-
sure.
Yeah, it's nutty. And even the companies that seem to be fine are laying people off. I heard last week that, you guys know the company Probably Monsters. They have a lot of big investments. They're like a game company. They were started by Harold Ryan, who was the CEO of Bungie for a while.
Okay.
They're like a semi-publisher. They operate a few different game studios. They let off a ton of people a few days ago. All the big publishers, 2K, EA laid off a bunch of people at BioWare a few weeks ago. I mean, BioWare, one of the most recognizable studios. And especially that was especially tragic because BioWare, of course, made Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. And here's Baldur's Gate 3, this smash success. And the company also known for making great RPGs, it lost 50 people, including some people who have been there for 2 decades. It's really just.
I saw some of those notes from the narrative folks at BioWare who got let go, and that sucks. That just seems like terrible people to lose at a game studio that's known for these great stories and that has been sort of suffering in the story department lately. Who knows why they did that?
Ridiculous. And you know what happens when you the layoffs? Not only do you lose people, the people who are remaining have survivor's guilt. They're not going to work as hard. They're not going to be able to function at full capacity, and they're expected to do the jobs of the people who got laid off in addition to their own jobs. It's just it's so short-sighted. And I mean, anytime a big company that can afford to not do layoffs does layoffs, it is it's always just shooting themselves in the foot and hurting their reputation, hurting morale, hurting the people. It never makes sense. Layoffs in general just don't make sense unless you're really an independent studio that is funded by your owner's pockets and you literally cannot afford to keep paying salaries. But still, it's...
Or to introduce that twisted Wall Street logic. It makes sense in a way if you can demonstrate that by cutting that cost, you're going to increase your projected revenue, and then that allows you to get to some kind of goal that you're trying to reach. In that investor logic, the sort of thing, those considerations, those longer term considerations don't always apply. And that's kind of how we wind up watching these things where we're smacking our foreheads and being I don't get why you would ever do this.
Yeah, it makes sense in a world where all that matters is the next fiscal year instead of the next 5 fiscal years. That's the fundamental long and short of this, is just the most short-sighted, because executives are incentivized to only think about the short term. You can't, it's like being a GM of a sports team or something like that. You're on the hot seat if you can't make winning moves in the next 2 years. So why would you think about 5 or 10 years from now? It's all just this perverse system that we all got to live in, I suppose. That's late stage capitalism.
Though? I don't know. I mean, we kind of talked about this with Tears of the Kingdom a few times, where having a game where a lot of people who worked on it have been there for a while can actually still be pretty financially successful. So it would just be nice if maybe a couple of these executives would just give that a little ponder at night.
Think about it.
Yeah, just think about
just
it.
think
That's
about
all.
it. Yep,
Think
just
about
think
it.
about
All of you out there listening, give it a thought.
Well, we know these
all you
executives
in
are
the
listening.
C-suite.
They're all listening.
They're all big
So,
triple click listeners.
I do assume, yeah. I'm guessing that at least one C-suite executive at a major gaming company is secretly listening to Triple Click.
Right in triple click.
The one who plays games, like the
Maximum
one
Fun.
C-suite executive who actually plays video games, listens to our show.
Bobby
All right.
Kotick? Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
Bobby,
expect
good old
it.
Bobby. Why don't we take a break and then we'll come back for one more thing.
If you need a laugh and you're on the go, try STOPPODCASTI.
Were you trying to put the name of the podcast there?
Yeah, I'm trying to spell it, but it's tricky.
Let me give it a try.
Okay.
If you need a laugh and you're on the go, call STOPPPAD. It'll never fit.
No, it will. Let me try. If you need a laugh and you're on the go, try STOPPPDCOO. We are so close.
Stop podcasting yourself.
A podcast from MaximumFun.org.
If you need a laugh and you're on the go.
I'm Iffy Wadiway, the host of Maximum Film.
I'm Alonzo Duralde, also the host of Maximum Film.
And I'm Drea Clark, yet another host of Maximum Film. Every week, we hosts huddle up.
Usually with an illustrious guest.
And we talk about films.
We have film news.
We have film quizzes.
We answer your film questions.
It's like the maximum amount of film talk. That's why we call it
Maximum Film.
Maximum Film, the movie podcast that's not just a bunch of straight white guys. New episodes weekly on MaximumFun.org.
And we are back. Kirk, Maddy, it's time for one more thing. Kirk, why don't
Yeah, how do
I
you wanna
won't
do
mention
this?
mine. Kirk, you can go first.
Okay, I'll go first with a book that I am reaching the very end of. That is a fantastic book that a lot of people probably know by an author who will never be mentioned again on this podcast. No, just kidding. Maybe he will be. This is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann, also known as the author of The Lost City of Z, a previous One More Thing from Jason Schreier. Mm-hmm. And I had heard of Grann. I haven't read Lost City of Z, but I knew this was a good book. My sister actually just gave me her copy and was like, dude, you have to read this book. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And also, as it happens, Martin Scorsese is adapting it into a film that's coming out next month. So it'll be out
as
really
it happens.
soon.
Yes, with Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah, a stacked cast in that, of course, because it's a Scorsese movie. So this is a great book that I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with. It came out in 2017, was a real sensation, and yet I had not read it, and I would imagine I'm also not alone in that. I didn't start reading it because the movie is coming out, but I would guess there's a lot of people reading it for that reason too. So I really do wholeheartedly recommend this book, and it would probably be a good one to read before seeing the movie, because I'm definitely going to watch the movie, because I think it'll probably be really good. So this is the story. The full title is, now I'm forgetting the full title, but it's basically Killers of the Flower Moon, the Osage Murders, and the Founding of the FBI, something like that. And it's the story of the Osage people, a Native American tribe in Oklahoma, who were forcibly relocated, just like so many tribes, over the course of the 19th century, and had their land kind of whittled away and taken away, but who managed to advocate for themselves in this one very specific way, where they established that their reservation, the land couldn't be divided up into parcels the way that a lot of other reservations were. So they owned the land, and crucially, they owned the mineral rights and basically everything under the land. The government didn't really care at the time. They were like, whatever, fine. Like, they basically had moved them onto like the rockiest, crappiest land in Oklahoma, and were like, all right, whatever, fine. So then, of course, they strike oil, and it turns out to be the richest land in the whole country. And for a period of time, the Osage people are the richest people per capita in the world, I think. I think that's the statistic. And then, of course, the story from there is this like story of just injustice after injustice after injustice. This just infuriating story of the government finding all of these ways to come between people and money that was legally theirs according to an agreement that the government entered with them, the United States government. Mm-hmm. But of course, when lawyers start getting involved and you start finding ways to trick people, you can kind of start just, essentially imposing your will, just like people did taking their land from them by force. It was the same kind of thing. That is the backdrop for this story. But we get to the 1920s, and that's kind of where this story starts, with a rash of murders that becomes a kind of a true crime mystery story. And that's the hook of this story, is you're watching as people are being murdered, Osage tribe members who have what are called head rights, which means they because they were born into the tribe, they own a certain percentage of the money of the oil money coming in every year, which is a lot of money. So they're very, very wealthy people, and they're being killed or they're dying under mysterious circumstances. And it starts to appear to be some sort of a vast conspiracy. So as a result, the Bureau of Investigation, before they were the FBI, this is under J. Edgar Hoover in the early 1920s, they send in an investigator because they have jurisdiction over Native American land. They don't have jurisdiction over very much because there's no federal, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the way that you can be charged with a federal crime, that kind of didn't work that way. But this is kind of the beginning of that, and it's Hoover sort of organizing the FBI into this new law enforcement apparatus. He sends this guy named White, I forget his first name, but who's basically this old cowboy who's become an FBI agent out to run an investigation. So the middle part of the book is just the story of this investigation, and it's a real page turner. It's a really interesting mystery. But it never loses that edge, just the edge of this sort of horrible injustice that this whole thing is built on, of course, that our whole country is built on. And then it winds up really taking some surprising turns toward the end as Grann himself goes and researches the full scope of what was happening and the kind of it really winds up just indicting all of America, in this thing that, of course, America should be indicted for, this original sin or one of the original sins of America's founding. So it's a great book. It's a book that I think all high school students should read. This is the kind of thing that I just wish I'd known about when I was in high school and was learning American history. It's similar to the Tulsa Race Massacre that we've talked about, at least, talking about Watchmen, or, its depiction on TV shows. When Watchmen showed that, it was a similar thing where a lot of people didn't know that this had happened. And it's kind of a similar story where a minority group accumulates a lot of money and then just a bunch of white people basically decide that's not okay and just start killing folks. And that's what happened here too.
Oklahoma, man, got some history.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's Oklahoma, but of course it is America. But yeah, a lot of bad stuff happened in Oklahoma. And so it is a great book, really just an essential historical read and a really just well put together, well written, well researched, just an absorbing historical tale. So I really recommend it, and I'm looking forward to the movie. So that's Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. Very easy book to find and a worthy one to read.
Well,
Cool.
as it turns out, David Grann, he's got some chops, because my warmer thing is The Wager by David Grann, which I finished a couple of weeks
Welcome
ago.
to the Grann Cast, folks.
Welcome back to the Grann Cast. Yeah, David Grann, he's quite a writer. This book, this is his latest book. It actually came out earlier this year, and it is another just riveting nonfiction story that is written like a novel, because he just so heavily researched it and kind of pinpointed and recreated scenes from history in a really astonishingly interesting
He's amazing
way.
at that. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and something he does, which I really appreciate, a lot of nonfiction writers will recreate scenes with fake dialogue and put thoughts in their characters' heads, and I hate that. It's none of that happened. People did not say it this way. This is not what happened. And the way David Grann does it is not like that. His quotes, when he quotes things, they are from primary sources, documents and logbooks and whatever. And they are things that actually should be quoted, like people's thoughts that they wrote down.
And
or
he's
whatever.
very artful. He's very artful in the way that he evokes a scene or describes someone returning home and driving across the land and the sun is setting a certain way, where he's not saying what happened, but he's kind of saying this is what it was like there. And so he isn't going so far as to paint actually narrativize in a way that doesn't add up.
Yes.
It's really clever. He's a very, very thoughtful writer.
Yes, and that's...
I agree. I thought about that a lot because I know that was a thing that bugs you. And now when I read nonfiction, I pay attention for it.
Yeah, it's something to pay attention to. There's some books, I won't name names, but there's some books that are just egregious about totally, they shouldn't even be allowed to call nonfiction. I mean, I guess I will name names. There's Ben Mesrick's book. I only think of this because that movie Dumb Money just came out based on the Wall Street story, and Ben Mesrick, it's based on a Ben Mesrick book that was was totally fictionalized. Anyway, The Wager. So The Wager is the story.
The Wager.
The Wager opens up with setting the scene by saying that like this little town in Chile, these people, they see this like little like flotsam like come by, and a bunch of people come off it, and they say they're survivors of a shipwreck that landed like miles and miles away, and they all are returned to their home in Britain and kind of are returned to their families. And then 6 months later, another piece of wreckage comes by, and some more people get off, and they're like, "Hey, those guys who came 6 months ago were mutineers, and they like rebelled against their captain." And that's setting the scene for this book. And so the book is about a ship called the Wager that is part of this
questionable name for a ship.
Ships.
I gotta say,
it is. It's called part of this fleet of ships that is a British expedition. British is fighting this war against Spain in the 1700s. I believe it's 1730s or something like that. And they send this ship to go and steal treasure from a Spanish galleon in a mission of like stealth and subterfuge. They want it to be totally, they want Spain to be caught unawares. And along the way, they run into all sorts of problems, catastrophe, and the Wager, the ship, winds up shipwrecked on an island where they have to spend months like in true hell, like this island that has no food and total awful weather conditions, and they like have to build a life out of it. And so the book is kind of set in these scenes of like, first you see the ship and you learn about ships, and then you learn about the voyage they took, and then you learn about what happens on the island and all the drama that goes in there. And then the third part of the book is what happens when they return, and the kind of the court hearings they had to face as a result of their actions. They had to deal with the consequences of their actions on the island and on the ship. And the reason it's so riveting is because David Grann found these logbooks from a handful of characters, 3 main ones, including this one guy, John Byron, who would be the grandfather or great-grandfather of the poet of the name Byron, Lord Byron.
Wow.
And so these logbooks managed to tell each of these like crew members' version of the story, and also create them as characters, because by reading these logbooks, David Grann could figure out like what they were thinking and what made them
This
tick.
is some real Obra Dinn shit.
Yeah.
It's very Obra Dinn.
Do you think that David Grann has played Return of the Obra Dinn?
I don't know. It's a great question. But yeah, it's fascinating. It is a fantastic, fantastic book. And it's nice and short, doesn't overstay its welcome. It just zips through stuff. Really, really interesting book. And to your point, Kirk, and kind of similarly to Killers of the Flower Moon, it does what the best nonfiction stories do, which is it tells a story that's greater than the events that just happen here. And there are some themes, not heavy-handed, but he does talk about this a couple of times, about the colonialism of the English and the problems that caused, and the reasons that they, like, how this all played into that, and the imperialism and this belief that all of the sailors had, that they were like on this crusade and this grand mission that was greater than them. And even on the island, they like ran into some natives from nearby who like knew how to survive the harshness of that land, and could have potentially helped them, but I won't spoil exactly what happens. But yeah, I mean, British colonialism, no good, but this story, extremely good. The Wager, David Grann, I recommend both books. I have also read Killers of the Flower Moon. Both books are fantastic, so go read them both. Maddy, what's your one more thing?
What's your one more Grann?
So Lost City of Z by David Grann.
It's not Lost City of Z. Imagine if it had been. That would have been great. I didn't know we were doing this.
It could have happened, honestly. I wouldn't put it past us to accidentally all pick a book by the same guy.
Sadly, no. Sadly, I read a book by Zakiya Dalila Harris, which is called The Other Black Girl. The reason I read this is similar to you, Kirk, in that there's a movie coming out about the book you read. I don't know if that was part of what motivated you, but there is
I didn't even know.
A Hulu show that is already completed, because I think they just put up all the episodes in one go, called The Other Black Girl. And I saw the trailer for it. Great trailer. Haven't watched the show. I just watched the trailer and saw that it was based on a book, and I was like, I think I'd really like this book, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and get this book and see if I like that before I watch this show. And then I devoured the book in like 2 days, because it's a thriller.
Always a good sign.
And so I don't want to spoil the book, but it's pretty simple in that it's kind of similar to the Stepford Wives in that it's like a science fiction premise where you like kind of have this marginalized class of people. In this case, it's specifically Black women who are working in a white dominated publishing house in New York City. This is a very New York City kind of a book. And much like the Stepford Wives, one of them becomes very suspicious of the other one in like a science fiction type of a way and is like, what is really going on with this person? And the book is like, so it just sort of unfolds from there. And that's the kind of sci-fi premise that I really love. I talked about They Cloned Tyrone on this show and how much I enjoyed that movie. And I think the Stepford Wives, like the original stories, is wonderful. Any kind of science fiction where there's clones or people are getting replaced or like brainwashed or something, I'm always fascinated by, because it's always sort of evocative of like real life social parallels and like why we do and don't trust other people. And so this book's very fun in that regard. I will say probably its only flaw that I would say is still something that makes it extremely fun to read is just that it's very focused on New York media personalities, be they bloggers, writers, publishing house workers, that whole world.
So the most interesting people.
Yeah, the most
people
interesting people in the entire universe.
Thinks are so interesting.
The people who maybe you might create a sci-fi conspiracy about in order to rule the world, for example. Like there is a piece of it where I'm like, would anyone actually care to do that? I'm not sure. Would they maybe instead do something like this in Washington, D.C.? I don't know. The book doesn't quite get into that territory because it's like a little too lighthearted for that, I think, to its benefit, because it's just kind of like, look, it sucks to work in these kinds of knowledge jobs that are like really high stress, tons and tons of hours, super hyper competitive, especially the few marginalized people who get these roles end up being intra-competitive in ways that are really toxic. And that's very much what the book is about.
That's the title, right?
Yes,
the other
of course.
woman,
Yeah, exactly. It's
sense.
like, oh, this is the one other person at the job who everyone's going to mix me up with, etc. And that's like really what the point of the book is. But yeah, I think maybe you enjoy it a little more if you're a writer who lives in a major city in the United States. But maybe you enjoy it if you're not one of those people. But yeah, it went down real easy, and I thought the ending was really fascinating, and I'd like more people to read it so I could talk to them about it, especially since I've already read, because I'm the kind of person who does this, that the Hulu show changes the ending.
Oh.
So I'm like, great, everyone needs to read the book and then watch the show, and then we can all discuss it.
My wife loved the book. You can text her.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'll contact her.
Yeah.
No
She's somebody I should
surprise.
read it.
I feel like in her case, she'd be like, well, why wasn't this book written about competitive law firms? Which was the thought I also had reading it. I was like, surely.
Similar industries
very,
in a lot of
very
ways.
similar. But yeah, The Other Black Girl, really cool book.
Except for the pay.
I know.
Similar industries in every way except the one that matters most.
Yeah. yeah, I guess so. But yeah, that's my one more thing.
Cool. Awesome.
All right.
Well, that is it for this week's episode.
That is.
Thank you all for listening. Kirk, Maddy, I will see you both next week.
Yeah, see you both next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.